going on, everybody? Welcome on in to the journalism building at Oklahoma State. We're going to record this podcast all over the place, so we don't know, but we don't know where it's going to be. But for the time being, for tonight, for episode 001 of the Border Battle podcast, Chris Notch joining me as he always did on the Border Battle show, the first ever and to date, I would say best ever student-run radio show on Oklahoma State's campus and in Oklahoma State University history. And Chris, great to be back with you. And we said we always wanted to get Border Battle back rolling. We don't have Landon with us today. I don't know if we ever will have Landon, but maybe a potential guest opportunity for him. He was our producer for the show. Chris, great to be with you.
Yeah, no, it is great to be back. Again, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for you being able to come back down here, getting a job. And so, yeah, it's nice. Unfortunately, our schedules are a little opposite of each other, so we are not able to do it on TV like we used to. But we figured, hey, let's do a podcast. You will find this, of course, probably on SoundCloud, I would assume, and,
yes,
of course, on our Facebook page. So please do, when you start seeing more activity back from our Facebook page, do take a listen, like it, share it, have your friends come check it out. We really like that. Also, I know it's our first one, but please do, like we always did for our show, send suggestions. If there's something you love our take on for the next week, a guest that you think would be really fun to have on or talk to you, or if we let you know a guest we're going to have on, if there's questions you want asked, we will gladly ask them for you. But yeah, no, it's an exciting time. It's great to kind of get back into it again, and we haven't fully, I guess, harnessed it yet, but we're hoping to do these at least for sure once a week, for everyone to listen in.
Yes, it will be a weekly podcast at this point, and we'll kind of go from there and see where we're at. Again, this is the first episode of the podcast hosted on the Triple Play Podcast Network, so thank you again to Triple Play for we're branching into the podcasting world a little bit more. It was one thing that I kind of was something that, well, I love podcasting, so it was something that I wanted to do. I am obviously the host of the Afternoon Sports Drive on Triple Play Sports Radio. Chris, the host of Last Call on Triple Play.
I just thought how funny that was when you were like, oh, I'm the host of the Afternoon Sports Drive, and I was like, yeah, and I'm the host of Last Call.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little bit of a crossover show here, or podcast. Chris and I, we've obviously done a lot of shows together. I think we work well together, and here we are back on the podcast trail. The what is kind of a crossover of the Afternoon Sports Drive and Last Call. Obviously, you guys are doing great on Last Call. I think we're doing okay on the Afternoon Sports Drive. So, but yeah, that's all fun and good. So, Chris, we wanted to start today, first episode back, talking about OSU men's basketball. The Big 12 SEC Challenge, do you like where it is in terms of being in the middle of the conference season, where Big 12 play, you kind of get a week's break or a weekend's break from seeing the same old teams, and you get to, for Coach Boynton, get to see your alma mater come to town, and for Oklahoma State fans, get to see someone different come into GIA during the winter months.
No, I totally agree. I think when you have this break in the middle of the season, of course, you're not actually having a break. You're not taking a full week off. But I guess I shouldn't say that. Now that the SEC Big 12 Challenge is over, the Cowboys are fortunate to have, I guess, a week off until they play again on this coming Saturday when the Jayhawks come into town. But no, I agree. I think it's good to see an opponent that isn't in your conference. It helps break that up. And it's exciting. And overall, and you and I talked about this, it was an overall good matchup for the Cowboys for their circumstance, and they came out firing on all cylinders.
So you like where it's located, though?
I do. I like that's in the middle.
Could it be improved?
Like where it's at?
Yeah.
No, because I think
you like it in the middle.
The only other location you could really do it would be in the beginning of the season, but I feel
which is when like the Big Ten ACC Challenge is, the Big Ten Big East Challenge.
Right. The thing though that I like about it in the middle of the season is it gives, when you're facing a different conference, it's given that team time to kind of figure their own selves out. Like, it just makes the competition that much more intense. You know, for instance, Kentucky and Kansas. I mean, it was granted Kentucky I think won by 9 or 10, um, but if you'd went earlier in the season, I think it would have been the other way around because Kentucky did not start out the season very strong. Granted, I mean they lost to I think it was Michigan State for the first game, but Michigan State is obviously a top 10
Yeah.
squad. But they haven't looked consistent. Kentucky has had some losses against some opponents that they should have easily taken care of. Um, so I like it in the middle of the season because yes, your season could be already derailed because of injuries, but at the same time, you could also be on a roll.
Yeah. It's well, like I said,
There's pros and cons to both.
when this was scheduled, the odds were people were thinking, man, this Tennessee West Virginia game is going to be pretty good, and West Virginia is probably going to win, but it's probably going to be a good game. Well, you see going into it, Tennessee's the number one ranked team in the country, and West Virginia is having their worst season under the Huggy Bear that they have in recent history. So you think about that, and obviously it didn't work out. I want to talk about South Carolina, Oklahoma State, though. Did you have anything to add?
Well, the only thing I was going to add is, and you and I brought this up earlier in the day, is Kansas State. Kansas State had a chance to really show something because especially with Kansas's loss. Again, it's not a conference loss, but it's a loss nonetheless. And Kansas State, that was kind of their chance to kind of make a statement against a good, or not a very good, I should say, Texas A&M Aggies team down in College Station, and you lose by 12.
Yeah, they blew that chance.
Yeah, and then you look at and I think another team that everyone's just not even thinking about anymore is Texas. Texas was still supposed to be a decently good team this year. I mean, they lost a few key guys last year. Basically, Mo Bamba was their key cog.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Texas is a school that everyone forgets about, and they don't want to be forgotten about. The way they hype themselves up, the way that school, that athletic department, hypes itself up, it's a disappointing every season. They're a disappointment because the way that they talk about themselves, the way that athletic department carries itself, you would think that they'd be winning national titles in every single sport, and that's not the case.
Well, and to me, what makes it worse is, at the time Georgia was 9-9, and you were 11-8, and yeah, it was in Georgia. You can say what you want, but in the end, you talent-wise, you looked way better on paper than Georgia did, and you got blown out.
Do you think they were looking ahead? This is something I brought up on the afternoon sports drive during the week. They have Kansas coming to town this week, and then they go to Iowa State. Do you think they're those are two really good teams, two teams you need to focus on probably a little bit more because you do care about conference play, and maybe that's where this is a little bit of a disappointment, or maybe they felt they got a little bit of the short end of the stick with the SEC Big 12 Challenge because they do have a tough schedule coming up here, and maybe they were looking ahead. That was one thing that I thought was shocking, how the players admitted that they were looking past Oklahoma State when they came and played here, and Shaka Smart was not happy about that.
Right.
And I played some audio from that. I won't dig it up for this podcast, but that was kind of shocking and interesting. Overall, the Big 12 does win the challenge. I don't know how much that means. The ACC and Big 10 generally keep a record on which team or which conference wins it, and that's obviously a really competitive challenge because those are really two good conferences, and so is this.
Yeah, my thing though with it is, at the end of the day, like, it's cool that they call it a challenge, but what's really at stake?
Nothing.
There, bragging rights, like you said, there's nothing. Like, I almost wish there was a trophy that they would start. Especially if you consistently stayed SEC and Big 12. If you consistently, if you did that, how many years? It'd be cool to do like a trophy that has like both conferences kind of put together. It's kind of like the Bedlam Trophy for basketball that you see.
So here's the thing about basketball, and someone said this about football. Why don't you have a Big 12 SEC challenge for football? Why don't you just have a week where they do those things? When maybe the SEC doesn't get to play the Citadel in week 15 or week 11 like they always do, which is crap, and we won't get started on that. That's a whole nother conversation. Here's why I don't necessarily think that's necessary, and I'm not a huge fan of doing a challenge like that in football. Football, the non-con, one game is so important in college football, because you only have 12 of them. And the thing about it, the ACC Big 10 or the SEC Big 12 or the Big East Big 10, though in basketball, you have 30 plus regular season games, or right around 30 regular season games, and then including conference play, you're definitely hitting that 30 mark. You have plenty of games, so that's where I think that comparison kind of falls short for me. So who knows? But again, Big 12 wins it 6-4 this season.
I will say this quick, and then we will get
Yes.
into it. Last little 2-bit thing. Another team that people don't really think about, the fact that a 14th ranked Texas Tech team only beats an 11-7 at the time Arkansas team, now 11-8, by 3. Texas Tech is struggling,
Yeah,
and it's not looking good for them.
Dealing with some injuries. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And I thought the most impressive win of the weekend was Iowa State over Ole Miss. That was a big win for the Big 12, and this was a big win for the Big 12. Oklahoma State over South Carolina, because it's one that at the end of the day you probably should get, and the Oklahoma State was able to get it. When I wrote my post-game thing for the Triple Play website, the one thing heading into the game, I wanted to see how South Carolina was going to deal with the problems that it's had all year. And number one was fouling, and they did an awful job fouling. They gave up 22 fouls. Oklahoma State only had 13. Coming into this game, I almost didn't believe this stat because it's so outrageous. Coming into this game, take a guess at how many, if you aren't reading my thing, take a guess at how many free throw attempts the opponent gets against South Carolina per game in SEC play. So they're just the last 6 games.
I'm going to say 25.
27. 27 free throw attempts in a game. And I said, I can't even believe this. This has to be a typo. There's no way you're giving up. And guess what? Oklahoma State, 23 of 29. 29 times they got to the line, shot at just about an 80% clip from the line. That is 23 points. That if you're Frank Martin in South Carolina, if you can limit that to 15, even if you limit them to 20 attempts, you win this game.
Yeah.
It was pathetic from South Carolina, and I'll tell you what, I was at the post game, and Frank Martin was not happy. He was not happy at all, and kind of incredible. I don't know if I have the audio of his, but he was not happy, and if I do have the audio, I'll throw some in right here. If not, we'll just keep going. But when you watch this. Did you watch much of this game?
I watched bits and pieces of it. Part of it I don't know, I might have been busy doing something, but I was like off and on. I checked on it, but I think for me it was the fact of like, well, 2 average teams going at it, duking it out.
Yeah.
And at one point, I think when I did check in, I think the Cowboys, it was early on, and I think they were up by like 7 or 10, something like that. So I was kind of like, okay, they're holding their own.
Yeah. Yeah, when you see 29 free throws, what comes to mind?
That's a bad following game on the. To me, and this is what I was going to point out. When you look at Oklahoma State, with them having, like you said, 13 personal fouls, or I guess you could say fouls, however you want to look at it. The fact that out of those 13, it only resulted in 9 free throws, just speaks wonders of how smartly these fouls were actually called on them in a sense. I mean, obviously you never want to deal with like high fouls, and 13 is not that bad. I mean, McGriff led the way with 4, and then you had Yor and Isaac Likely had 3 apiece, and then you had a couple scattered with 1. But that just, it makes such a difference because, like you said, when you have 22 fouls for South Carolina, and that leads to 29 free throws, I mean, in a sense, every single personal foul that you had resulted in a free throw attempt. I mean, obviously it didn't fully, but you can't have that kind of thing happen.
No, you can't. And Frank Martin talked about that stupid hand checking, and he was absolutely right. 50 feet away from the basket, hand check, foul. And Oklahoma State was in the bonus too early. They fouled underneath. It was it was disastrous for South Carolina.
Well, and it puts you in such a hole
No doubt.
when you like you said, you get those little check down fouls,
Hmm.
and then if all of a sudden they're in the bonus early, then you have to change your game plan. Then you can't play the type of game you want to play, especially if you're all of a sudden in foul trouble. The Gamecocks had what five guys with 3 fouls or more. I mean, you can only have so many people get fouls before all of a sudden you start running into depth issues or then
Their leading guy Chris Silva had four fouls. He got his fourth foul. It was pretty. It was not like it was with only a few minutes left. He got that fourth foul, and it took him out of the game in the second half. And he had already he only got a few points down the stretch because he was spending, the majority of his time on the bench.
And I will say this credit to Lindy Waters because this is his first game out of the last 3 where he has not either picked up a foul or even fouled out. I mean, the last 2 games he's fouled out against both um, Oklahoma, he fouled out, and then against Iowa State on this past Saturday, he had also fouled out. So the fact that in this third game you don't even get a foul, I mean, credit to him for kind of realizing like, oh, okay, I can't have these type of fouls because some of his fouls, I know you kind of talked about it at the OU game where there was a few that you're just like, what are you doing?
This team, Oklahoma State, and Boynton talked about this a little bit in the post game. Here, first of all, I want to play some sound from Coach Boynton. So this is Coach Boynton when he got asked about if there was anything they did different offensively, more aggression to try to put South Carolina under some pressure because they knew South Carolina was a foul-prone team. So here's Coach Boynton.
It's the defense. Our defense is similar to their defense, and it's a foul-prone defense. It's very aggressive. I mean, there's always an idea that you can take the other team out, and so we just try to take advantage of their aggression by maybe driving the ball a little bit more, throwing it inside a few more times. I thought Lindy was terrific driving. I thought Ice was really good, probing and transition especially, which led to some more advantageous opportunities for us.
So yeah, there's Coach Boynton talking about that, and I think he makes a good point there. But going back to your point about stupid fouls, that was another thing Coach Boynton said was when they had more depth before they had to dismiss those 3 players, they were playing defense like South Carolina, and he was right. They absolutely were. You're an A. If I had a stupid foul count meter, he would 70% of the fouls he commits are stupid fouls. They're going after offensive boards that he has no business getting. I'm sorry, but if someone has you boxed out well, and you're not going to get why would you run through the back of someone?
And they always say the worst is if you're getting boxed out by someone shorter than you, and I don't say shorter like let's say I think yours 7 foot I believe he is
He's 6'11",
or 6'11". Okay, if you're getting boxed out by a 6'9", 6'10" guy and you're 6'11", it's not so bad. But if you have a 6'4" guy on you and you are getting boxed out, don't even try anything because it is such an easy call for a ref to go over the back because of your height.
Yeah.
And you could be perfectly just like the ball could just be placed right that you're able to get it. You will get called that every time because you are taller and it just looks like you're going right over the top of a guy that's got you boxed out.
Yeah, and you have to be self-aware and recognize when it's not your play. And you're up until this point hasn't been able to recognize that. Now he only has 3 fouls in this game. He picked up a couple of them late, so he wasn't in foul trouble. So that's really important. Thomas DeZagua and Lindy Waters, 8 of 16 from 3, 50%. This is something else Coach Martin was pissed off about in the post game. I have never heard a coach say these words. Well, yeah, I told the guys after practice yesterday, let's get on this bus, let's get on this plane, and go get the butt whooping we got coming to us tomorrow. That's what he said in the post game. Wasn't mincing any words. And how do you let Lindy Waters and Thomas DeZagua, make 5 threes on you?
Well,
Pathetic.
It is because if you read the scouting report, I don't care what anyone says, DeZagua's game is all about the 3-point specialist. That's all he is.
No doubt.
If you had a thing up, if he was in a video game, it'd say 3-point specialist. That's it.
Yep.
And he's just a 3-point specialist. He's not a 3-and-D type of guy. He is strictly out there for his offensive firepower from deep.
Yep.
And the fact that you give up Out of his 6 makes, 5 of them were threes, like you said. You're not going to win that battle.
Stupid.
But
at the very least, run him off the line. Make him drive. You want to give him a free lane to the hoop? Go ahead, because sometimes he's worse shooting a layup than he is shooting a three.
Not only that, he is not a guy with a lot of speed.
No.
If you can make him drive to the hoop and all of a sudden you push that ball up, he's got to run back, and then he's using more energy, stuff like that. It's a lot harder for a guy if he's all of a sudden getting lanes to the hoop. And sure, if he makes them, okay, you deal with that. But after a while, that running down the floor, and then if you push the ball up, him having to get back, I mean, that takes a toll on anyone. But especially with Desagua not being a very light on his feet type of guy for his size, which you'd think he'd have a little more speed to him,
mm-hmm.
and he's not a good defender. So the more tired he gets, that's when he gets that little hand check style play that, like you said, South Carolina plays. And to your point, you said earlier when, that you said Coach Boynton had said that when they had more guys on Oklahoma State, they played like South Carolina did when it comes to fouls.
Yeah.
It's so funny how since everything that has happened, all the good that people don't understand have actually come out of this scenario at times. Like you said, they're learning what's a good foul, what's not. Yor is turning things over, and the way Yor is playing. And I know you had said that some of the guys on the team basically were telling Yor like, hey, get your stuff together. We need you.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll play the Lindy Waters quote right now talking about Desagua talking to Yor from the other day. So I'll play that right now.
I remember yesterday Thomas was talking to him about how physical it was going to be, and all Yor said was, you're going to see a different beast tomorrow, and just walked off. So he came in, he proved it, and we just got to keep it going.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And he absolutely was a beast. He got pulled down 11 boards, 8 points, did have the 3 turnovers, and a couple of them were absolutely stupid turnovers. His plus-minus was 18. And he finally played 35 minutes in a game. I didn't know he was capable of doing that, honestly, because he's been in foul trouble so much. So it was a good game overall. I will say this. Evan Hinson of South Carolina on the floor for 344. That's it. He was -9. In 3 minutes and less than 4 minutes, the team was -9, which is pretty incredible.
Well, and what Yor has to realize, especially, and he's getting there, that's why I said with not really having someone to come in for him at his position, he's got to take advantage of this outcome of this scenario. And the fact that you can average just over 2 blocks a game, people are going to see that on a scouting report and go, I can't even go in there because he's gonna block my shot. The fact that when you're 6'10" like that, and you have that good of a success rate on blocks, he's had, I forget what it was, I think it's 3 straight games where he has had, out of his past 3, he's had 3, 2, and then 3 blocks respectively a game. I mean, that's something that if you're a coach in the locker room and his name comes up, that's all you're circling right here.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, the zone has helped with fouls, number one, but also it's helped Yor, I think, and Yor has been able to protect the rim in a 2-3 zone. He's been in the middle, and his length is really bothered in a 1-3-1. So that's been important for Oklahoma State. But overall, I really like what Coach Boynton has been able to do on from a defensive standpoint going to zones. Now, the rebounding has to get better from a zone perspective because South Carolina was a 1-to-1 rebounding team. Your opponent gets the same amount of rebounds as you, and they had 8 more rebounds, 42-34 over Oklahoma State. So that's got to get cleaned up. I think Boynton will clean that up. He's shown that he's been able to clean some of this stuff up early on. Early on in the season, we were talking about turnovers and foul shooting, and both of those things were not a problem against South Carolina. Just 9 turnovers and 80% from the line.
But you brought up a good point, and I was going to bring it up, and you hit right where I was going. When you look at that, the Cowboys had 9 turnovers, right?
Yep.
And South Carolina had 11 turnovers. Cowboys had 8 steals. So out of those 11 turnovers for the Gamecocks, 8 of those were stolen.
Yeah.
When you look now at the Cowboys, out of those 9, only 2 were stolen, which, again, I mean, nine turnovers for the whole game is actually pretty good. People need to realize 9 isn't terrible, but 7 of those turnovers were just passes and stuff that, questionable calls at times.
Yes, no doubt about it. Boneheaded mistakes, that is definitely the case. But when you don't give up steals and you don't give up live ball turnovers, that's how you result in a 14-6 outscoring them on points off of turnovers. Oklahoma State outscored them by 8 points off of turnovers. All right, we are about 25 minutes in. We wanted to keep this around 30 minutes, so we have a couple other topics we want to hit, so we'll hit them quickly. Oklahoma State, Iowa State in wrestling. Now, Iowa State came out and blitzed the women's basketball team last night. Not very good. We're recording this on Sunday evening. So today, on Sunday, Oklahoma State, number 3 in the country, welcomed in number 15 Iowa State and beat them 22-15. This was a good Iowa State team. They started off at 157, where Chase Straw from Iowa State beat Wyatt Sheets, just a decision, 3-2. And then OSU got it right back at 165. Andrew Schomers defeated Logan Schumacher 8-2. And then Joe Smith, number 5 ranked in his weight class, and he's moved up now. He used to wrestle at 157. He's up to 174. He pins Marcus Coleman at 241 for the first bonus point victory for Oklahoma State. And I believe it was the only bonus point victory. As I go through, I'll kind of note that. I believe it was the only bonus point victory for Oklahoma State. 184, number 11, Jacoby Smith, decision over number 19, Sam Colbray, 9-3. 197, number 6, Willie Miklas from Iowa State. He had a decision over Dakota Gear, 9-6, over the OSU wrestler. And Gear is number 10, so number 6 over number 10 there for Iowa State. 285, number 2, Derek White, decision over Gannon Gremmel, 7-1. And then 125, go down to the lightweight, Nick Piccinini, major decision. So there was another bonus point victory over Alex McCall, 14-2. Dayton Fix, he gets back on the winning track after losing a tough one up in Princeton, I believe it was.
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
Where he got the loss.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So he fell to number 3. Decision over number 9, Austin Gomez, 5-4. He is in a loaded weight class. Dayton Fix is. So there are some really, really tough wrestlers and really talented wrestlers at 133. 141, Ian Parker, number 14 from Iowa State. He gets the upset decision over Cade Brock, 6-3. Brock has struggled a little bit this year, and 141, we'll see if that ends up being a problem for Oklahoma State. And then to finish out the match, this was a big talking point. Bula Walling comes back. He's an All-American. He took out Caden Gfeller from the lineup. Gfeller is ranked in the top 10 at 149, and he's supposed to be the 141 backup. Gfeller is technically Cade Brock's backup. He wrestled all year at 149. Bula Walling comes back in and loses because he got hurt again. I don't know if it's a re-aggravation. I'm sure I'll get the news from Jason tomorrow on our show. But this sucks. I mean, you lose another All-American again, but on the other side of it, it's nice to have Caden Gfeller be able to step in there.
There's one name, and granted he's only a redshirt junior, but Cade Brock, this season he is having right now, it really reminds me of Dean Hiles last year here, the other year.
Yeah, just a little disappointing.
Yeah, when the matches that he should have won, he didn't, and then the matches that he didn't really have a shot, he wins. And it's interesting how some players play so well against the guys that they have they shouldn't even have a chance against.
Yeah.
And then the guys that they should just pancake, they don't. But even like Dayton Fix, to be a true freshman, I believe. Redshirt freshman.
Part of the redshirt, John Smith redshirting a lot of people, trying to make sure this year they could compete with the likes of Ohio State and Penn State. So
yeah, and I think you put Iowa in there too.
Yeah, and they're going to see Iowa soon, and that's going to be a fun one, man. I'll tell you what, if you're a wrestling fan, you got to get to GIA for that one, because that's going to be a blast.
Now, I know we do want to move on here real quick to kind of probably get to the potential last little bit. But
we'll get to that.
But one thing, too, with Iowa State, honestly, in my eyes, I thought Oklahoma State would handle them better than a 22-15.
Yeah, it wasn't. It didn't.
It wasn't a typical Cowboys team that.
Yeah.
And granted, the past few weeks they have not, or past few of their matches they have not played amazing.
I will say this though, and I understand that. This didn't feel. Looking at the results, it doesn't feel like it was that close. You know what I mean? Because again, okay, so the one you lose to Sheets, small loss. Here are your decisions: 8-2, 9-3, 7-1, 14-2, 5-4. I mean, though you're handling those pretty well.
So really, in your eyes, it's more the 7-point swing for the Cowboys. It just makes it look closer than what it was.
Yeah, I think so because, again, you just weren't getting bonus point victories. And it's going to be tough to get bonus point victories against the best teams anyway. So I think you're going to see a lot of these low-scoring games or matches where, you're gonna be right there, nip and tuck to the end.
And I think it's funny. That's the closest match they've had all season.
Yep.
So far, the other two closest would have been against the University of Minnesota, which was a 14-point swing for them, and then against Princeton, where that was a 15-point swing.
And Minnesota, knocking on the top 10 door, I think, again. The Big Ten, man, they are loaded.
Talk about parity.
I barely knew Wisconsin had a wrestling program. They're a top 20 team now. And, man, it's good stuff happening. So they get that win. We're over the 30-minute mark, so I'll make this last little thing quick before we get out of here, Chris. Justin Rose won the Farmers Insurance Open. There were 9 current or former Oklahoma State golfers in the tournament, including amateur Victor Hovland, who we will see this season out at Carson Creek. Well, we won't actually see him out at Carson Creek, but, he's golfing for the Pokes still, and because he won the U.S. Amateur Championship, he was the U.S. Amateur Champion this year, he got an invitation to this and then also to the Masters, so he'll be playing in Augusta, Georgia as well, but he got cut, missed the cut by a few strokes, but overall a pretty good weekend for him, and obviously getting to play in professional events is good experience for him. And I interviewed Coach for our show, actually, for Border Battle. I interviewed Coach Alan Bratton last year, and he said sooner rather than later he thinks that guy's going to turn pro. So hopefully they get one more national title. They got to be the favorites again this year to win the national title. Taylor Gooch was the best former Oklahoma State golfer. He was tied for third at minus 16. Charles Howell, the third, tied for 20th. He was 10 under. At 5 under was Kevin Tway, tied for 43rd. And tied for 66th, Ricky Fowler, 1 under. A awful weekend for Ricky. He went 2 over and 2 over while everyone else was moving up. He was moving down. So Ricky Fowler, not the best performance, but he's always going to be in it, and he's probably Oklahoma State's best shot at winning that first major for a while for an Oklahoma State Cowboy.
Yeah, and then also a non-Cowboy would be Tiger Woods, who actually had a pretty good game for himself at 10 under.
Finished the day with 6 birdies.
Yep,
I heard.
Yep, tied for 20th, 5-way tie with that. So, even for him, that's to me that's always good to see. Because, you and I, especially, we've grown up with Tiger all of our lives.
It's good for the game.
So, yeah.
I will always say that. Tiger Woods there is no golfer like him, and until we find someone revolutionizing the game like Tiger did, we will have no golfer like him again, unless someone does that. So, we'll see if someone's able to do that. Hopefully it's a former Pope. That'd be fun. Huh?
Victor Hovland,
the next Tiger Woods. You heard it here first on the Border Battle podcast on the Triple Play Sports Podcast Network. Chris Knott, Jordan King. We'll see you next week.